So, April books. That was like peak sexual tension. Morally questionable. It's not even funny. Everyone is doing everyone. Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Leanne and I share home, lifestyle and book content here on YouTube. Today's video is going to be a reading wrap up. We're wrapping up all of the books that I read in the month of April, which I think it was 7. I will check, but I think I read 7 books and we're going to run through them all, see what I rated them, see which I liked the best, the least. But first, of course, job number 1 is always to go and make a coffee. So that's what we're going to go and do now, and then we'll come back and get started on the books. So, April books. It's still a bit hot. So I checked and I was right. I have finished 7 books and I have one that I've DNF'd for now. I kind of think I want to finish it, but I'm just not in the mood for it at the moment. So we will run through all of them, and I really enjoy making this video because when I'm reading books I'm always just desperate to move on to the next one. So it's nice to have this opportunity to look back and think through whether I really liked them, whether I would recommend them, and a bit of what they're about, so you can decide if there's something you want to add to your own TBR. And I kicked off the month with what I think was my favourite read of the month, first one, and that was Cinder Vale by Caroline Peckham and Suzanne Valenti. Now, I am a Zodiac Academy stan. I love Zodiac Academy. I love all of the spin-off series, the what is it called, Ruthless Boys, Darkmoor Penitentiary. I read them all, not last year, the year before, like one after the other. I think I started in the summer and then finished November. Like, it was a good few months of just solidly reading one after another of this series. So when the Sins of the Zodiac series was released, I of course tried that too. Book number 1 in the series was Neverkeep. I really enjoyed that. I found it a bit slow going in the beginning, but I wasn't bored by it. Like, it was slower paced with a bit of world building, but I was enjoying it even though there wasn't much action. And then Echo Fort was so good. That was like peak sexual tension, Echo Fort, because it is of course enemies to lovers. That is what the Twisted Sisters are so good at, as enemies to lovers. So in the series, I feel like Echo Fort is like that peak enemies to lovers moment, especially for what are their names? Honestly, my brain is absolutely rubbish for retaining information. Vesper and Bastian, those are the names I was trying to remember. So it's like peak enemies to lovers for Vesper and Bastian. There's so much tension. Into this book, they are further along in their love story. Kaiser and Everest are still in their enemies era, which I love. That is how enemies to lovers should be done. We shouldn't be rushing this. We should not be rushing the enemies to lovers arc. They have to have a period where they still hate each other, but there's lots of lust for me. That's what makes it perfect. So I've kind of I've lost my train of thought on what I was actually saying, but I really enjoyed this book anyway. Because it is book 3 in the series, it's very difficult to describe the storyline without spoilers, but the overall series is that they are Fae and they have one of 4 types of power, elemental power. So there's fire, wind, earth, air. Fire, wind, earth, air. Yes, there's the 4 elemental, and all the elements are at war. So if you are born with air, you live in the air section and you are fighting all the others. There are also crossborn or star-crossed, something like that. So say you had air parents, but they mistimed your conception, so you were born with water, you would have to leave the air and you would have to go and live in the water section, which is what Vesper is. She's not water though. She was born in water and she has air. I said it the other way around. But basically, they're all at war, but they all go to the same school to train. That school is called Neverkeep, which is the title of book 1. And that is where Everest and Vesper, our 2 female main characters, meet. And their relationship is a weird one. Obviously, they're supposed to not like each other, but they're also drawn to each other. I really did enjoy the relationships in this series that I have so far and how they've developed. I will say, up until this point of book 3, I know there's always discussions on reading orders when it comes to series, especially with Zodiac Academy. There's always discussion on whether you should read Ruthless Boys first, Zodiac Academy first, blah, blah, blah. In my opinion, it doesn't matter on those 3 series because there are no spoilers. They've written the series in a way that there are no spoilers for any of it. But if you want to read Sins of the Zodiac and you haven't read Zodiac Academy yet, I would say you're going to need to read Zodiac Academy first. Not because there'll be spoilers as such, just because the ending of Cindervale will not feel the same to you if you've not read Zodiac Academy. That's why I feel like you have to read Zodiac Academy first. I feel like that was absolutely no kind of review. It was just the ramblings of my brain in not a very clear or concise order. But I did, if you hadn't guessed, give Cindervale 5 stars and would definitely recommend the series, and I would recommend anything by Caroline Peckham and Suzanne Valenti. The second book I read in the month was from my TBR. It was my 26 for 2026 prompt, I think, and that was Caraval by Stephanie Garber. This is the second book I've ever read by Stephanie Garber. I also read Alchemy of Secrets. A lot of the issues I had with Alchemy of Secrets I also had with Caraval. None of the feelings or the emotion really came across to me, although the book was interesting and intriguing. At the same time, I didn't really care. I didn't really care for the characters or for what they were doing or whether they managed to do whatever it was that they were trying to do. So basically, Caraval is... How to describe the premise of Caraval? I'm not too sure. So there's 2 sisters. They live at home with their dad. Their dad is abusive. He's not very nice. Their mum disappeared. They don't know if she's dead. They don't know where she is. But their grandmother used to tell them stories about Caraval, which is like a travelling carnival, and it's run by one person who I'm going to have to look up the name because I cannot ever remember names. Legend. The Caraval organiser person is called Legend. There's lots of stories about Legend, about who he is, what he might be. Caraval used to run regularly, but all of a sudden it stopped. There was an accident at the carnival and there haven't been any more since. But the female main character, Scarlett, keeps writing to Legend to say, like, I would love to come to Caraval. If you ever do another Caraval, please let it be in our town because I really want to go. And she never hears back from him. I think she kind of gives up hope that she will ever be able to go. But then, randomly, she gets a letter back from him and she gets 2 tickets. So she sets off to Caraval with her sister, and once they get there, they become part of the game. So her sister is kidnapped, and the game that Scarlett and all the other people that are there are taking part in is to find her sister. But like I say, I didn't feel any emotion from this or any connection to the characters whatsoever. I don't actually know if I'm going to continue with the series. I do kind of want to know what happens next because obviously with it being book 1 in a trilogy, there weren't many answers at the end, but at the same time I don't know whether I care enough to actually pick it up and read it. I didn't really like the main character. I found her quite irritating and blindly trusting, which is the same issue I had with the main female character in Alchemy of Secrets, actually. She literally trusts anyone that tells her to trust them. They would say, trust me, do this, and she says okay. Someone else says this, she says okay. I don't know, it wasn't my favourite book, as you can see, and I gave it 2 stars. But I do think that that is like a personal preference thing, because I hear so many people raving about Caraval, the series, about Stephanie Garber's other books. Is it the Once Upon a Time series? Everyone seems to love them. So I do think it is a personal preference thing, and you should have to try them for yourself, because I do think she paints a beautiful setting, like a beautiful world. Like, there's so much description and it is so interesting, which should be so interesting, and it is intriguing. It's just the lack of emotion for me. Book number 3, this was one of my library book prompts, and it was a book with flowers on the cover. I chose Blood of Hercules by Jasmine Mass. This is of course a well spoken about book on Book Talk. I've seen loads of people talking about the series and I've wanted to read it for a really long time. I knew it had like a Spartan, what's it called, like Greek god, Greek mythology kind of vibe, but that's as much as I knew going into it. So our main character is Alexis. We meet her as a child. It's a dystopian world, so it's set in the future, and Greek gods and goddesses run the planet. So she's in the mortal realm, living with terrible foster parents who treat her abominably, and she lives a very difficult life. She ends up getting a foster brother, and for whatever reason they are on their own. They no longer even have a home, so they live in the forest. They get through school barely, to the point where they do this test. They take a test at school, and it turns out that Alexis is in fact a Sparta. She is descendant from the gods, and she is whisked off to the land of the Greek gods. There are many different gods, and it is a slightly confusing system that it does take a while to get the grips of. Like, there's a family tree type thing in the beginning of the book, and I did have to keep looking back, because you have gods, and then you have like the children of the gods that are the heirs, but then there's also I think they call them mutts. It's such an awful word to call a person, but I think they call them mutts, and they are like the child of a god, an immortal. But there's all this hierarchy anyway, and she goes to this school and she has to take part in a challenge to see if she's worthy or good enough to be part of their world. My favourite character of this entire book is the snake, Nyx. She has a pet snake. Only she can see it. This snake is invisible to everybody but her, and it like lives inside her clothes, like winds around her, and she has all these little conversations with Nyx that just make me laugh out loud. And as well, another thing that she does that I found so funny is she says things, but then in brackets it'll be the truth. I need to find an example. Yeah, I did put an example in my Goodreads review actually. Like, so it'd say something like, all of us made it to the other side, one of us threw up, and then in brackets, it was me. And just every time there was a little bit like that, it made me laugh. This was a really funny book. It was my sense of humour to a T, like sarcastic, funny quips is the thing I find funniest, and I really enjoyed that. The love interests in the book are 2 gods who are so morally questionable, it's not even funny. Like, they are not good men and don't do good things. I think this is a dark fantasy romance, so there are some things in it. I don't know whether there was any trigger warnings at the beginning. There was nothing that offended me too much, but the men were bad men. They do try to change for her. They do try to be better for her, though. There is some really good tension, and it is quite slow burn. There isn't any spice until the very end of the book. And also, if you like men who yearn and men who lust after their women, you will probably like these 2 as well, because they are obsessed with Alexis. But I enjoyed the Greek mythology world, and I enjoyed, like I say, the banter, the love interests, and I just had a really fun time reading it. Honestly, I kept laughing out loud. I just had so much fun, and I gave it 5 stars for that reason. And that is also the reason that my next read was the next book in the series. I jumped straight to it, and that is Bonds of Hercules, book 2 in the Villains of Lore series. I did not enjoy this as much as book 1. It carried on where we left off. The things that I did like about it is that she is at a point where she has had enough, and she is not gonna take anything laying down anymore. She's ready to fight for what she believes in. She's sick of men telling her what. She is ready to fight for herself, fight for those that she loves, and that is something that I really enjoyed about the book. Again, it still had the funny quips and the funny banter. Nyx, I think she was even funnier in book 2 than she was in book 1. I loved her, she's my favourite. It was strange the way the plot was set out, because it felt like nothing was happening for the longest time. I was engaged and enjoying the story, but there was no real plot. There was nothing of note taking place. It was just watching all of the Spartans in this Colosseum type setting doing these challenges. It wasn't till the very end that you kind of saw her plan and how she was going to execute it. And then it did link back to things that had happened earlier on in the story, which was quite good. I did kind of see what was going to happen and when it was going to happen, but that didn't really make me enjoy it any less. The spice. I cannot say that I was a fan of the spice in this book. I don't know why. Just, there was a lot more spice in book 2 than there was in book 1, and I just need the spice to be part of the plot. Like, it has to be part of the story and necessary to the story, and this, it wasn't necessary to the story. In fact, the main section of spice where they all get together for the first time, I actually skipped it. I skipped 3 or 4 pages. 3 or 4 pages! It was really long, and it was really, I wasn't invested. So I just skipped it. But I didn't enjoy the spice part of the relationship, but I did enjoy the love, the relationship building. Overall, I did enjoy that still. Just the spice scenes really bored me. I felt like they were trying to be shocking. It was trying to be dark romance, but just fell a bit flat. There are only these 2 books in the series, but the ending felt like there could be more to the story. I feel like the female main character Alexis and her relationships are tied up in this book, but there's other characters that their story is very open-ended. But at the same time, I had a look online and there's no news for if this series will get another book, if it's being written, when it's being published, if it's being published, anything. So I feel like there should be a 3rd book at some point in the future, but we will see. As of now, it's just 2 books. I gave this one 3 stars, which was a bit disappointing because I loved book 1 so much, but it was still enjoyable. I would still recommend reading the series as a whole. The next book I read was also my 2nd library book prompt, and that was a book that matches the season you're in. We are, of course, in spring, so I chose A Springtime Affair by Katie Ford. This book was okay. It wasn't brilliant, it wasn't terrible. It did feel a bit emotionless for me. The characters felt very one-dimensional. So it follows a mum and a daughter, and they both find a friendship, love interest. The mother meets somebody who she thinks that she wants to date, and then the daughter also meets somebody that she thinks they're just friends, but then she starts to feel like they're more than friends. I have read quite a few Katie Ford books in the past, and I think I enjoyed them. It's been a long time since I read one, so from memory I think I enjoyed them, and I don't think this one was as good as the ones I've read in the past. I knew the characters were falling in love because the book told me the characters were falling in love, but I didn't feel them falling in love. I didn't feel their love or anything. But the book did have the kind of setting that I really enjoy, a more village town setting. The mum was running a B&B, the daughter is a crafter, she makes weavings. She was a weaver, so she was doing craft markets and stuff. I like that little small town country setting in a book. I really enjoy that because it's like the kind of life I wish I was living. But yeah, it was just lacking something. I think I did still give it 3 stars. So like I say, it was okay. I enjoyed it. I didn't struggle to get through the book. I liked the characters enough. It was just lacking a little something for me. The next book that I started is actually the one that I've not finished, the one that I've DNF'd for now, and that is Orlith Academy by Samantha Louise. I heard about this on TikTok. I followed Samantha Louise at the beginning of the year when I first started my BookTok account, and I've watched all her content in the process of her releasing the book and the book being released, and it sounded like my kind of thing. I was really intrigued to read it. I am somebody who likes a slow burn. I do not like insta love, I do not like insta lust, and I do not like spice for the sake of spice, which is why I struggled with this book, because literally straight away everyone is at it. Everyone is doing everyone. There is so much spice that there's barely any plot. I think I'm about 80% of the way through the book, and of that 80%, I would probably say 20% of it is storyline and the rest has been spice. Literally every single chapter has spice in it, and maybe if I was in the mood for that, I would enjoy it. I don't know. I don't want to give up on it entirely. I do want to try and finish it, but I just can't cope with the constant jumping into bed and not anything else happening. Outside of the spice, when I first started it, I thought, oh, this is really good. It's got like Zodiac Academy vibes. I'm really going to enjoy this, because obviously I love Zodiac Academy. But it was getting to the point where it wasn't just feeling like Zodiac Academy vibes, it was feeling like Zodiac Academy. So many things are the same. The houses are slightly different, but there's elemental magic, all 4 elements, and some people can also shift. And then there's also one paragraph that I've read so far that is about bonds between people and fated bonds and stuff like that, and it just is so similar to, what is it called in the Zodiac Academy, like Elysian mates, the different types of bonds there are in Zodiac Academy, and then the bonds that they were describing in this, they were just too similar, far too similar. I can't rate it yet because I haven't finished it and I haven't decided whether I'm going to finish it, but I don't really feel like I can recommend it at this point either, which I hate saying, because I'm always very aware that behind every book, especially something like Orlith Academy, which is an indie self-published book that someone's worked so hard behind the scenes, someone's put their heart and soul into something. So for me to criticise it, I hate that. You know, if someone's like a bestseller and I say I don't like the book, it doesn't matter to them. There's plenty of people that do like it, but when it's a smaller niche book that's just come out, I don't want to give my full opinion without having fully finished it. I would say though, if you are somebody that enjoys a lot of spice in your stories, maybe this would be for you. The next book that I finished during the month was actually an audiobook. I had been listening, I got a free trial to BookBeat, which is an audiobook app where you don't pay per book, you pay for hours. So you get like 20 hours or 40 hours, whatever your subscription is, and you can listen to any books that are on the app available, like for the hours you've got. Because the way I've been using audiobooks is to carry on listening to a book that I'm currently reading when I have to work. So that's the way I've been using it the most. I did listen to this book though, which was Shatter Me by Tahereh Mafi, because I own book 2 and 3 of the series. I found them in a charity shop, but I didn't have book 1, and book 1 was on the BookBeat app, so I thought, well, I'm going to listen to this as an audio whilst I'm working throughout the month, and then I can carry on with the physical read. I did really enjoy it. It's quite an interesting premise. It's a dystopian story, and the main character is basically in a cell at the beginning of the story because she's been locked up because of her abilities. If she touches anyone's bare skin, they get immense pain, and if she touches you for too long, then you will die, basically. So that is why she's locked up, and then one day she gets a cellmate, and they're kind of drawn to each other. She's obviously not had any kind of human contact for the longest time, so when he is put in her path, she doesn't want to talk to him, doesn't want to make a connection, but also can't resist that human touch, that human connection. Things kind of escalate though, and she ends up being released, and the world that they live in, as always in a dystopian setting, there's people who are suffering, and then there's the people with the power. And the people with the power are the ones that have released her, and they want to use her and use her ability for bad, and she does not want to go along with that and fights back kind of, in a way, escapes. Lots of other stuff happens, but at the end of the book, she's ready to fight. She's ready to fight for herself, and she's ready to fight for the greater good. I did enjoy the book, but I feel like the next books are going to be better. I feel like this was like leading up to the point where stuff's going to start happening and you're going to learn more about characters. Things that I struggled with this a little bit, which are probably my own fault, because I have heard things on BookTok and I'd heard stuff about some of the male characters. So as I was listening to it, I was second guessing what was happening, because I was like, well, if she ends up with him, who's he and why does everyone talk about him? So I think it was more the fact that I'd heard slight spoilers, because instead of just enjoying the story for what it was, I was like trying to be sleuth and trying to work it out. I do think though, with the way this ended, I'm probably going to enjoy book 2 and the rest of the series. I gave it a 3-star rating. And then we are already on to my final read of the month, and this is the only book I have the physical copy of, because the rest this month were all library book reads or Kindle reads, but it was actually Foxglove by Adeline Grace. If you saw last month's reading wrap up, you will know I read Belladonna, which is book 1 in the series, and this month I read book 2. I think I loved this even more than the first one. I loved the first book. I loved the murder mystery element. I loved the paranormal elements. I loved the fact that it was set in the past. This one was even better. It maybe has a little bit less tension than book 1, because obviously she is already in her relationship. Blythe, the character from book 1 that was sick, she is more of a main character in this one, and we in fact get some of her point of view. And we also have Fate featuring in this as well. So Death was in the first book, Death is in this book again, but Fate has also turned up. There is yet another murder mystery. Someone else has died, so she needs to use her powers, which are the ability to see ghosts, see death. She uses that ability to help her solve the murder mystery. I just really enjoyed the way the story developed. The end with the little twist is so good. I think it's going to be more from Blythe's point of view the next book. I feel like Signa's story is like completed in this one, so in the next one it's going to be more Blythe's story and Signa as a side character. That's what I think anyway. I don't know that for sure. Book number 3 is called Wisteria. I do not own Wisteria, so I either need to get it, find it, whatever, so I can finish this series. I gave this 5 stars, just like I gave book 1 in the series. I really loved it, really enjoyed it. So that is all the books for April. 7 books finished, 1 DNF'd, which I will let you know if I manage to finish that eventually. My favourite book of the month was definitely Cindervale. I loved that story so much, and the ending was so brilliant. And then of course my least favourite was Caraval. I just didn't gel with that story. I just don't gel with that author. She's just not the author for me. I have already filmed my May TBR. Some of the books that I'll be reading in this month are behind me, but that video went up last week, so if you've not seen that yet, I would go and have a look at that, because I've picked out 6 books. I've picked out 6 books, and then I also have a book that I'm reading for book club, so there's 7 books on there. As always, thank you so much for watching this video. I really appreciate it. I hope that you've enjoyed it. I feel like I've waffled today. I feel like my thoughts are all over the place and things haven't come out of my mouth very clearly, but I hope you've enjoyed it anyway. I'll be back with another video very soon. So again, thank you for watching. Bye.